Hi everyone, and welcome to the book Refuge, and welcome to a tag video. I haven't done a tag video in at least a couple months. I know that they don't always get like the greatest views, because if it's not a tag you're interested in, then you're not going to do it. But this week I'm kind of celebrating my 2 years on Booktube, as well as I just reached 2,000 subscribers, which is really exciting. And so I saw Jessica from Peace Love Books did the Booktube Oldie Tag, as well as I then went and looked up the original, which is by Monica Kim, who created this as kind of something for people who've been on Booktube a while to do instead of the Booktube Newbie Tag. So the Booktube Newbie Tag is actually the first video I ever put up. Yes, you can go and watch it if you want to, even though it's horrendous and makes me want to cringe a little bit. We come from humble beginnings, we do. This is just 7 questions long, and I thought it would be fun to kind of have a discussion video and talk about some of my perceptions and some of the fun parts of being on Booktube. And I don't super consider myself an oldie, but when I think about, like, it's been 2 years and so much has happened. I've read so many books because of and for Booktube, and I just really wanted to talk about that a little bit with you guys. So here we go. The first question is, how long have you been on Booktube? Or it actually says part of the Booktube community. So as I just said, I've had my channel for 2 years. I started in mid-April of 2018, and I was so nervous. But one of the great things about being brand new to YouTube in general, unless you're someone famous or you had a super great video that you put up right away, is that you generally don't have any eyes on you. And I think that's a really encouraging thing, because something I get a lot in Q&As that come up, and from others who really want to do it but they're super nervous, is that they don't know how to talk in front of people. And I gotta tell you, in general, you're gonna have a really long time where like 10 to 20 people are watching your videos, and it's frustrating if you're coming into this with the wrong attitude. But if you're coming into this because you just want to talk about books that you like, and you want to, meet people virtually and find people you have things in common with, it's great. And it's a great space to learn and grow. So I had been watching Booktube for about 3 years before that. And I am just like so happy that I finally pushed myself over the edge to do it, because I have so many friends now, people I genuinely consider friends, that I never would have had if I hadn't been brave enough to make that ridiculous first video where I just cringed at myself and I didn't know how to edit things and I didn't know what I was doing. And I still don't. I still film everything on my phone. I just have a lavalier mic plugged in and sometimes some lights, and that's all that I use. And I'm okay with that. I'm happy with the progress I've made. Number 2, what was your biggest misconception about Booktube? Well, I kind of said one. I was super nervous about people seeing my videos, and I'm a bigger girl, and I'm not fancy with editing things. And so that's one of the reasons too it took me a very long time to start, is because I thought I needed to have all of this knowledge before I could make a video. And that to me is the biggest misconception, is I thought I needed all this practice and all this knowledge. I mean, I learned everything I needed to know about making a YouTube video on YouTube, and I just looked up the type of phone that I had, and I looked up what is a free editing software that I can use, what is YouTube Analytics Studio, what is a mic that I can plug into my phone to make my audio better. And I got answers for those. And yeah, so that was my misconception. I was thinking about making videos for probably 6 months before I did it. And then about a week before I did it, I really started looking things up. And then I have a couple friends who I'm going to mention later because a question about them comes up, and that finally pushed me over the edge, because I was like, if they can do this, I can do this. And yeah, It was totally worth it. Number 3, how do you think Booktube has changed over the years? Well, my answer for this is a little bit the same as Jessica's was, is I think that romance has become much more acceptable. I think more mainstream people are reading romances, not quite to the same like level of romances that I read. A lot of you come to me for taboo, age gap, male recommendations because I've been reading more of those, and there aren't a ton of channels who talk about them. But there have been more romance booktubers that have gotten bigger, and that was something I was afraid to talk about. I really only talked about the fantasy books and historical romance that I read. Like, historical romance was as far as I would go, and I would often brush over those books in my wrap-ups because I didn't think anyone wanted to hear about them. So I was only talking about the fantasy, YA and adult and sci-fi, and maybe like nonfiction books that I read were really the only books I felt comfortable talking about because I was embarrassed how much I love romance, which is ridiculous because 95% of the books that I read in a year are going to be romance. And so last year I lied about how many books I read in the opposite direction because I wasn't tracking any Kindle Unlimited romances I read. I didn't count them. So this year I've changed that. And as you can see, if you follow me, I'm almost at my Goodreads goal, which I set at 230 books, and it's only May, and I'm going to hit that by the end of May. So who knows how many books I'll end up reading this year because I stopped hiding the books that I was reading. So that's what's changed for me, is as I have stepped out of my closet of sharing what I was reading, you guys have been accepting. And right before I filmed this, I looked through to see my most watched videos, and most of them are all the romance ones. So that goes to show me that if you're honest, people see the things you're most passionate about, and you're rewarded for that. And so it was totally worth it for me. Number 4, what is your favorite Booktube memory? So this one is going to be something that just happened because I was finally brave enough to do something. So there's a group of us that have put ourselves together over the past few months, and we're called the Romance Takeover Booktube group, club, gang, whatever you want to call us. And we've done 2 readathons. So the first one was called the Romance Takeover Readathon, where we just had different romance prompts and different genre, and basically you just read as many as you could. And then during that readathon, we started talking about how different all of our tastes were in romance, and how some of us just like happy front porch, Miss Mayberry romances, contemporary, and some of us like dark, gritty, taboo, and we want it to get a little bit nasty, and we want things to be a little bit dark. And so I came up with the light versus dark romance readathon, which we are now hoping to make an annual thing. It was Star Wars themed for Star Wars Day, and it was so much fun. It was so much fun setting it all up. It was so much fun tracking everyone's books as they came in, and our live show was amazing. And this group of, it's all women currently. We would love if we got some men involved in it. So if you are a man who loves romance, please reach out to us. We would love to have the male perspective in this. I honestly think males are left out of the romance community too much. I only know 2 romance booktubers who are men that I've watched their videos. I would love to have that perspective, absolutely. But anyway, currently it's a group of women where we have a Voxer chat together, and that's where this all started from. And we're now planning to do like a monthly live chat where we talk about romance and talk about what we've read and share them with each other, because it's a hoot. It's a hoot. It's so much fun. It's so much fun. So that's my favorite memory right now, because number 1, it's so close, but number 2, I'm really proud of myself that I did that, because a lot of times I kind of fight my organizational like drive because I don't want to take over something. I've been accused of that in the past in like school and at work. And these are people that I've met through the internet and I adore them, and I don't want to push myself onto people and take control of something if other people want the responsibility as well. Thankfully, that hasn't been the case. They've been so welcoming and supportive, and it was fun to get to have my time kind of in the spotlight with this and come up with it. And I'm really excited to see what project we work on next. It will be so much fun. Number 5, what are some books you have been introduced to because of Booktube? Guys, this is a list I could not even make. In fact, I want to dedicate a whole video to this. I think Jess did something like this too, where it's like books I read because of Booktube. But I can tell you my absolute favorites. The Illuminate Files by Jay Kristoff and Amy Kaufman. I read that because of, well, just seeing it everywhere. And I drug my feet for so long because I'm such a brat sometimes where like if everybody else likes something, I don't want to like it too. And then it's dumb because as soon as I like it, I'm happy everybody else likes it because there's all these people to talk about. So I'm just a snob sometimes, forgive me. But I put off reading those books for so long, and the experience I had reading them was so much fun. And I suggest them to almost everyone, especially to people who love audiobooks, because the audiobooks are like a full cast and there's sound effects, and it's so good. Like, it's so good. So I highly, highly love that. What else? There's so much. Ooh, the Duel of Fire series, or the Duel of Fire is the first one. I think it's the Fire and Steel series by Jordan Rivet. The first one is Duel of Fire. My friend Murphy read this because it was sent to her as a self-published novel, and I read the whole series. Murphy still hasn't finished it. Murphy. But I did, and I adored it. I need to read the sequel series, but honestly, I'm like waiting for more of the books to be out first because I binged those ones so quickly, and there's only 2 out, and I think it's going to be a long series again. So that's one of the things too, because I read so fast, I don't like to start a series that isn't finished because then I end up having to wait, and I hate waiting. There's so many. Those are the main ones I can think of right now, but honestly, so much. I mean, Leigh Bardugo's books, Murphy's review of the Shadow and Bone trilogy is actually what got me to make YouTube videos. That's one of the videos I was talking about, where I was just watching her sit in front of her bookshelves and talk about books. And back then, her videos weren't as well produced as they are now. I mean, they were still miles ahead of what I do, but she just looked so chill. Like, she was just sitting there talking about them, and it was awesome. So I love that. Number 6, what is something that frustrates you about the Booktube community? I don't have a super great answer for this. I think in general, it still is the lack of romance representation and the lack of like just talking about what the themes mean, because I feel like the themes in romance and like the issues and miscommunications we face, they come from real life so much more easily than fantasy tropes do. I adore fantasy as well, don't get me wrong, me talking about romance, but that's not something you have to convince people of. Like, you don't have to convince people that a fantasy story is like worthwhile most of the time. But I feel like with romance, you need to justify why you're reading it. Like, you're reading it, and there's that old joke about, like, I read Outlander for the plot, right? There's that joke. But it's true. Like, why do I need to? Like, the plot of that kind of is romance, in the beginning at least. Why does there need to be another reason? Why can't the fairy tale be why I'm here for it? That's what Disney was all about in the beginning. And there's a whole kingdom built about it. So that always would frustrate me, needing to explain myself. But it doesn't really anymore, because I found a community that is like that. And if that means my channel, my community stays small, but yet it's all people who understand me, I'm okay with that trade-off. I only have, like, I'm willing to put up with whatever it is to have this. And I never thought that I would continue making videos, but I was always doing it just for fun. And that's always been my thing, is I was like, if this ever gets too stressful, if this ever invades my normal life, I'm not making money doing this. I'm doing this for fun. In fact, it costs me money because I buy way too many books a month. Like, my book budget is more than my food budget every month. So if I'm not enjoying it, I'm not going to stick around. And so there isn't a ton that frustrates me, because I wouldn't be here if there were things that frustrated me. I don't like to complain about things. Some of you have seen my Outlander reviews, might think differently, but in general, I don't do a lot of rant reviews. I don't do the negative side, because I'm here to suggest books to you. And if I don't like them, then I'm not going to talk about it. That's why in my wrap-ups now, I only talk about my 5-star reads, because I don't really devote time to anything else. So, and number 7, what are your hopes for the future of the BookTube community? I'd like to see romance to continue to get a place. I'd like to see romance be as respected and as invited to book festivals and situations as other channels. And I do foresee that happening, because especially with how a lot of authors have had to go to the internet now. I mean, a lot of them already are, whatever. I'm not broad strokes, but I mean, there's authors doing Zoom meetings, and like the Schwab is posting things with other authors, and people on AuthorTube are able to get more people on for interviews. Daniel Green, he does this interview series with authors that's been amazing. He's had some huge name authors on his channel. And I think that this time of the global pandemic has only made that a more important thing, because authors can't do tours anymore. They need to do virtual. And Sarah J. Maas and her husband have live streamed from their kitchen, which is something we never would have got before, because she would have been on tour and wouldn't have had the time. And so I think that because the response, as much as we can make the response good to those, if we can reward that behavior of the authors and creators, then I think we'll get to keep that when other things might change. And it's the beauty of having the internet. Like, if this pandemic had happened 50 years ago, we'd be like writing letters to everybody all the time, which isn't a bad thing, again, but we would have no connection. And by having the internet, my upload schedule hasn't changed at all. You're still getting 3 to 4 videos from me a week. And that is exciting to me, that this medium allows for there not to have to be a dip in content. In fact, it's only went up because people have time at home. So I see the future of it only getting better, because I think that publishing companies and authors are seeing the benefit of having booktubers willing to talk about them and meet with them and share their viewership with them. And it's booktubers who have a trusted audience, who you trust the advice that I give on things. So I can only foresee that being better and better as it goes. So thank you so much for joining me. That has been the Booktube Oldie Tag. This was done by Monica Kim. Like I said, I'll link her original video down below. Any of these questions that I answered, please share with me. If you're someone who isn't maybe a part of BookTube but have been watching it for years, what are some changes you've noticed? Have they been good or bad? If you're one of my fellow friends who is a booktuber, what are some changes you'd like to see us make? Could I work with you on some of them? Let me know if you want to collaborate on something. I would love that. So thank you so much for watching me. I put up 3 to 4 videos a week, and you can watch some more of them right now. Bye.